Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. Some men fear chaos. I have always feared unpredictability. Numbers, spreadsheets, balance. These things keep the world in order. That is why I became a CPA. Numbers do not lie. People, though, people lie all the time. For the last 7 years, I thought I had built something solid with my wife, Alyssa. A home in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. A steady rhythm of Sunday morning coffee, dinner parties with friends, small moments that felt like forever. While you're here, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know. But lately, I have started to notice something. And I trust patterns more than I trust words. It is a Thursday night when I first feel it, the shift. Alyssa is across the kitchen, phone in one hand, wine glass in the other. She is texting, her eyes flickering over the screen with the kind of focus she used to give me when we talked about our future. "You still working?" I ask, setting my plate in the sink. She startles like she forgot I was there. Oh, yeah, just some PR stuff. A campaign rollout for next quarter. A normal response. But something is off. I dry my hands with the dish towel, watching her carefully. Must be a big deal. She nods quickly, slipping her phone face down on the counter. Yeah, lots of moving pieces. That is the first small lie. Alyssa has always been good under pressure. Quick, sharp, unshaken. This version of her? Jittery, guarded. I say nothing, but I don't stop watching. The next clue comes 2 days later. Saturday mornings used to mean lazy breakfasts. Her in my old college hoodie, feet tucked under her as she sipped her second cup of coffee. But today, she is rushing out the door, hair done, makeup flawless, heels clicking against the tile. "Where are you headed?" I ask from the couch, barely looking up from my laptop. She hesitates. Another pause. A tell. "Brunch with Madison," she says, smiling. "We haven't caught up in a while." I nod, keeping my face neutral. Tell her I said hi. She grabs her purse, hesitating again, like she wants to say more. Then she just nods and disappears through the door. But here's the thing. I know Madison's out of town. I saw her social media post this morning. She is in Miami for a client event. So unless Alyssa is having brunch with a ghost, she just lied to my face. The final straw comes that night. I am in my home office, wrapping up a few reports when I hear Alyssa in the kitchen. She does not know I'm awake. I hear the clink of her wine glass, the low murmur of her voice. A phone call. I step out quietly, staying just out of sight. "Yeah, I know," she says, voice hushed. A soft laugh follows. I needed to see you today." Silence. Then, in a quieter tone, "I miss you too." A slow, measured breath leaves my lungs. The air shifts. My world narrows. Numbers do not lie. Patterns do not lie. And now, neither does she. I step back into the shadows, returning to my office. Alyssa has no idea I heard her. But that is fine, because now I know exactly what to look for. People reveal themselves in patterns. The way they speak, the way they move, the way they react when they think no one is watching. Alyssa has always been composed, sharp with words, quick with explanations. But now, she hesitates. She repeats herself. She avoids my eyes when she talks. And once you notice a lie, you start seeing them everywhere. It starts with the late nights. Alyssa's job has always required some networking, drinks with clients, industry events, the usual PR obligations. But lately, she is coming home later and later. Tuesday night, she strolls in at 11:30 p.m. I am sitting in the dimly lit living room, laptop open, reviewing tax reports. I don't look up right away. I let her walk into the silence. She sets her purse down carefully, like she's testing the air. "Didn't expect you to still be up." I glance at the clock. "Long night?" She exhales, stretching her arms like she's exhausted. "Yeah, the client dinner ran late. You know how it is." I nod slowly. "Which client?" She hesitates, for just a fraction of a second. But it's long enough. Then she forces a smile. "Oh, just some new accounts." Steve was there, too. Steve is her boss. I know for a fact he was on a flight to New York this morning. I say nothing, just nod. She exhales like she's off the hook and heads to the bedroom. When she passes, I catch a scent that does not belong to her. Or me. A trace of cologne, faint but distinct. Expensive, Musky. Not mine. I stare at the empty hallway, my hands curling into fists. She's getting sloppy. By Thursday, she is deleting texts. I see it over her shoulder while she sits at the counter, sipping wine. She reads a message, smirks to herself, then swipes left to delete it immediately. Not a work email. Not a group chat. A personal message. She doesn't know I saw. I keep my voice calm. Good news? She nearly jumps, gripping her phone tighter. Oh, just Madison. She was telling me about some ridiculous client of hers. A lie. 2 lies, actually. 1. Madison is on a business trip in Texas this week. 2. If Madison were texting her, there'd be no reason to delete it. I take a sip of my drink and say nothing. Let her think she's still ahead of me. Madison is the first to notice it too. The following Sunday, she stops by the house, armed with a bottle of wine and a knowing smirk. Figured we should have a real drink before the workweek starts. Alyssa smiles a little too tight. You're always full of good ideas. I watch them from the kitchen as I fix myself a drink. They have been close since college, but something between them is different now. Alyssa is too careful, not as relaxed as she usually is around Madison. And Madison? She is watching Alyssa closely, like she sees something she doesn't like. Where were you Friday? Madison asks casually, swirling her wine glass. Alyssa barely hesitates. Oh, just a work dinner. You know how it is. I see it instantly. The way Madison's lips twitch, the way she presses them together like she doesn't believe a damn word of it. She knows Alyssa is lying. But instead of pressing, she just hums. Right. Work dinner. Alyssa shifts in her seat, suddenly eager to change the topic. How was Texas? You didn't kill your client, right? Madison lets it go for now. But later, as she is leaving, she lingers by the door, glancing at me. Hey, Daniel. I raise an eyebrow. Yeah? She hesitates, then tilts her head toward the house. She okay? The question is loaded. I could answer the way I used to. Say, yeah, she's just busy, or work stress, you know how it is. But I don't. Instead, I meet Madison's gaze and say, you tell me. She watches me for a long moment, then nods once, lips pressed into a thin line. She knows something is wrong. And now? So do I. Madison was never one to stick her nose where it didn't belong. She had always been fiercely loyal to Alyssa, since their college days, through job changes, relationships, all of it. But loyalty had limits, and tonight, Madison found hers. She had spent the last week watching Alyssa lie to Daniel. Not just little white lies, but deliberate, careful fabrications. And no matter how much she told herself it wasn't her place to get involved, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was really wrong. That is how she found herself following Alyssa across the city. It started at a happy hour event, one of those PR networking mixers downtown, filled with overpriced drinks and people talking too loudly about how important they are. Madison was only there because of client, and she had half a mind to leave early. But then she saw Alyssa, not with Daniel, not even with a group, but with Brent. Tall, sharp-suited, dangerously charming Brent, a coworker of Alyssa's that Madison had met once or twice. He was exactly the type that got away with everything, the kind of man who could talk his way out of felony and have the judge apologize for wasting his time. And right now, he was way too close to Alyssa. They were in a dimly lit booth, their heads almost touching as they spoke in hushed tones. Madison watched as Brent's hand brushed Alyssa's knee under the table. Alyssa didn't pull away. She leaned into it. Madison's fingers clenched around her glass. This wasn't networking. This was something else. Then, as if to remove all doubt, Alyssa stood, grabbing her coat. Brent followed immediately. Madison didn't even realize she was moving until she was already outside, sliding in her car, watching as Brent opened the door for Alyssa, guiding her into his sleek black sedan like a perfect gentleman. He wasn't taking her home. She knew that much. And against every ounce of her better judgment, Madison followed. They drove through downtown, weaving past bars, office buildings, and late-night coffee spots before finally stopping in front of a hotel. Not just any hotel, a 5-star downtown luxury suite, the kind of place designed for people who didn't want to be seen. Madison pulled over across the street, her grip on the steering wheel tight. This wasn't just a bad feeling anymore. This was proof. Alyssa stepped out of the car first, brushing her hair behind her ear in that playful, flirtatious way Madison had seen her do 1,000 times in college. Brent followed, resting a hand on the small of her back. Then they disappeared inside. Madison sat there, staring at the revolving doors, her pulse hammering in her ears. She could leave. She could pretend she never saw it. Let Alyssa deal with her own mess. But then she thought about Daniel. She thought about the way he had looked at her last week, standing in the doorway, voice calm but firm when he had asked, "You tell me." He knew. Maybe not everything, but he knew something wasn't right. And now, Madison had the one thing he didn't. Proof. She reached for her phone, hands shaking, and snapped a photo through the windshield. It was grainy, dark, but it was enough. Alyssa and Brent, walking into the hotel together. Madison lowered the phone, exhaling slowly. Then, without thinking twice, she drove home, her chest tight, her thoughts racing. She had a choice to make, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't choosing Alyssa. Madison had barely slept. She had spent the night tossing and turning, her mind replaying the moment Alyssa disappeared into that hotel with Brent. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the way Alyssa had leaned into him, the way she had forgotten, or maybe never cared, that she had a husband waiting at home. By dawn, Madison knew she couldn't keep this to herself. Daniel deserved the truth. She texts him at 7 a.m. "Coffee? It's important." He responds almost immediately. "Where?" They meet at a small cafe on the quieter side of town, away from the usual brunch crowds. Madison arrives first, fingers curled around her coffee cup, heart hammering against her ribs. She doesn't know what to expect from Daniel. Anger? Denial? A demand that she stay out of his marriage? But when he walks in, he is calm. Too calm. His posture is relaxed. His expression unreadable. He doesn't look like a man who just found out his wife is cheating. He looks like a man who already knew. He slides into the seat across from her. "Madison." She exhales slowly. "Daniel." For a moment, there's only the sound of the coffee shop, the soft murmur of conversations, the clinking of cups. Madison grips the edge of the table, forcing herself to speak. "I need to tell you something," she says. He leans back, studying her. "It's about Alyssa." It's not a question. She swallows. "Yeah." She pulls out her phone, hesitating only for a second before sliding it across the table. "I took this last night." Daniel picks up the phone. He doesn't react right away. Madison watches as his eyes move over the grainy photo, Alyssa and Brent, walking side by side into the hotel. A long silence stretches between them. Finally, he exhales and sets the phone down. "How long?" Madison shakes her head. "I don't know for sure, but it's not new. She's been acting different for months, lying about where she's been, who she's with. I thought maybe I was imagining things, but then last night happened." Daniel nods, fingers tapping idly against his coffee cup. "You followed her?" Madison straightens. "I wasn't planning to, but I saw her at happy hour. She left with Brent, and I had a bad feeling." He doesn't look at her with anger. If anything, he looks impressed. "You trusted your instincts," he says. She nods, hesitating. "I know this isn't easy to hear." Daniel exhales slowly. "No, Madison. What isn't easy is watching my wife lie to my face every day, pretending everything is fine." Madison stills. "So you already knew." His lips press into a thin line. "Y had suspicions." She was sloppy. He leans forward, lowering his voice. "A woman like Alyssa? She doesn't forget details. She doesn't slip up. But lately? She hesitates when I ask her simple questions. She deletes texts. She comes home wearing perfume I didn't buy her, with traces of cologne that isn't mine." Madison swallows hard. "Jesus." Daniel gives a humorless smirk. "She thought I wouldn't notice." Madison searches his face, expecting anger, betrayal, some kind of reaction. But all she sees is determination. "So," she says carefully, "what do you want to do about it?" Daniel leans back, exhaling. "Brent works at a high-profile PR firm, right?" Madison nods slowly. "Yeah. His company has some serious corporate clients, big money contracts, government accounts. Image is everything in that industry." Daniel strokes his chin. "That's what I thought." Madison watches him, sensing something calculating behind his expression. Daniel, she says slowly, I know this is personal, but if you want to handle this the right way, you need to stay level-headed. He meets her gaze, lips twitching in amusement. Who said I'm not level-headed? She hesitates. A lot of men in your position would lose it right now. Go home, confront their wife, throw things. But you? She narrows her eyes. You're thinking. He smirks. Of course I'm thinking. Because Alyssa and Brent aren't just cheating. They're making mistakes. And mistakes can be exploited. Madison's breath catches. Daniel, where are you planning? He reaches for his coffee, taking a slow sip. Then, finally, he smiles. Some men break when they find out their wife is cheating. They yell, they throw things, they make a scene. I calculate. Alyssa thinks she is playing a game where I am blindfolded, where I am a step behind. But she has no idea that I stopped being her fool the moment she chose to lie to my face. Now, I am the one in control, and she won't see it coming. Step 1. Gathering evidence. Madison and I spend the next 2 days collecting proof. It is surprisingly easy. Alyssa had gotten lazy, comfortable in her deception, assuming I would never question anything. Her credit card statements tell their own story. Dinners at restaurants we never visited together. Hotel charges that don't match any business trips. Lyft rides to locations that are nowhere near her office. I print everything. Then I get access to our shared phone records. Late-night calls. Long conversations that never included me. Madison helps me compile into a timeline. When it started, how often it happened, where it happened. When we step back and look at the full picture, the truth is undeniable. Alyssa isn't just having an affair. She's been living a second life. Step 2. Securing the fallout. The next move is legal. I meet with an attorney on a Tuesday afternoon. A quiet, well-dressed man who has seen cases like this before. He listens as I lay out the details. The affair. The financial records. The deception. Then he gives me a slow nod. If you want to file, we can build a strong case. Illinois still recognizes fault-based divorce in some instances. Adultery can factor into settlements, especially if it involves shared finances. I lean back, considering. What about the apartment? It's in your name alone, the attorney confirms. Legally, you can remove her from the lease. If you want, we can begin that process immediately. I nod. Alyssa doesn't know it yet, but she's already losing her home. And that's just the beginning. Step 3. Turning the pressure on. Brent. Madison handles this part. With her connections in marketing, she casually drops a well-placed tip to someone at Brent's firm. An anonymous whisper about staff fraternization and a possible conflict of interest in client negotiations. The corporate world loves a scandal, but it loves deniability even more. By the next morning, Brent is under internal review. Alyssa has no idea, but she will. Step 4. The setup. The final piece of the plan is the easiest. Alyssa has always believed she is the smartest person in the room. That's why she won't question it when I suggest a romantic dinner for 2 this Friday night. A way to reconnect. A fresh start. She buys it immediately. What she doesn't know is that Brent is getting the same invitation from her boss. A client meeting scheduled for the exact same time at the exact same restaurant. And waiting outside, a private investigator with a camera. Alyssa and Brent won't even know they're being watched. But I will. And by the time the night is over, I will have everything I need. Some people don't believe in consequences. They think they can lie, cheat, manipulate, walk through life without ever facing the fallout. Alyssa is one of those people. She thought she had control, thought I was too blind, too trusting, too comfortable to ever see her for what she truly was. Tonight, I am proving her wrong, and I am doing it on our anniversary. The restaurant is one of those high-end downtown spots where reservations are booked months in advance. Dim lighting, expensive wine lists, the kind of place where powerful men close billion-dollar deals over a medium-rare steak. I arrive early, dress sharp, every detail in place. I don't fidget. I don't second-guess. Because tonight, I have everything I need. Madison arrives next. She slides into the seat across from me, crossing her arms. You're really doing this? I sip my whiskey, unbothered. It's already done. She exhales, shaking her head. I can't decide if this is brilliant or psychotic. I smirk. Why not both? She glances around the restaurant. And your photographer? Already in position. She doesn't need to ask where. The private investigator is sitting 2 tables away, camera discreetly tucked inside his coat. No one will notice him, but he will see everything. At 7:30 sharp, Alyssa walks in. She is dressed for a date. Tight black dress, flawless hair, heels that click against the marble floor as she follows Brent into the restaurant. They don't see me. Not yet. I watch as Brent leads her to the host stand, his hand resting on the small of her back. A touch too intimate. A gesture too familiar. The hostess scans the reservations. "All right, this way, sir. Your guest is already waiting." Brent frowns. Already waiting? Then he sees me. Alyssa stops in her tracks. Her smile falters, confusion flickering across her face. "Daniel?" I lean back in my chair, perfectly relaxed. "Happy anniversary, sweetheart." She blanches, eyes darting between me and Madison. Then her gaze lands on the private investigator at the next table. The camera on the table. The stack of printed photos. And she finally understands. Brent, being the corporate snake he is already calculating his exit. He steps back, hands raised. "Look, I had no idea." I cut him off with a smirk. "Brent, sit down. Let's talk." His face drains of color. He turns to Alyssa, but she is stuck in place, her expression shifting from shock to panic. "Daniel, this isn't..." I tilt my head. "This isn't what?" Her throat works, try to swallow down 1,000 lies. "You don't understand." I pick up the stack of photos from the table and slide them toward her. Alyssa hesitates before flipping through them. Brent's hand on her thigh at the bar. Their bodies close, whispering, smiling, disappearing into the elevator. Madison crosses her arms, watching as Alyssa crumbles in real time. Brent stands abruptly, already scanning for an exit. "I need to go." "Good idea," Madison mutters. But I'm not done yet. I glance up at Brent, my voice casual. "By the way, how's work?" His entire body tenses. I smile. "Oh, you haven't heard? There was an anonymous tip to your firm about an inappropriate relationship between an employee and a corporate client." Alyssa whirls on him, eyes widening. "What?" Brent pales. I shrug. Could be nothing, of course. But the board takes conflicts of interest very seriously. Might be worth checking your inbox when you get home. Brent doesn't even bother responding. He leaves her behind, disappearing toward the exit like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. Alyssa turns back to me, realization settling in. "You did this," she breathes. I lean forward, folding my hands on the table. "No, Alyssa, you did this. I just made sure you couldn't lie your way out of it." Her chest rises and falls rapidly. "We can talk about this. Please." I chuckle. "Talk about what?" "How you've been screwing Brent behind my back. How you came here, on our anniversary, thinking you could keep playing me for a fool." She reaches for my hand, but I pull away. "Daniel," she whispers, voice breaking. You never meant to get caught," I correct, standing. I throw a few bills on the table. "Dinner's on me. Consider it a farewell gift." Then, with Madison beside me, I turn my back on the woman who thought she could lie forever. Alyssa always thought she was untouchable. She built her life on careful calculations. What to say, when to lie, how to manipulate. She played people like chess pieces, always staying 3 moves ahead. But there's one problem with people like Alyssa. They never see it coming when someone plays the game better than them. I arrive home late that night, taking my time. I want her to sit in her mess, to stew in her own disaster for as long as possible. She's waiting when I walk in, still in her dress from dinner, heels discarded, hair a little out of place, like she's been pacing for hours, like she's been losing her mind. She looks up sharply. "We need to talk." I set my keys on the counter. "No, Alyssa, we don't." She flinches at the finality in my tone. "Daniel, listen," I cut her off. "I'm filing for divorce." She staggers back like I just hit her. "What?" I nod, slipping off my watch, unbothered. "It's already in motion. My attorney is drafting the papers as we speak." She shakes her head violently. "No, you can't just throw everything away like this." I laugh, slow and deliberate. "That's rich, coming from you." Her jaw tightens, but I see the panic creeping in. "We can fix this." I tilt my head. "Why would I fix something you set on fire?" She swallows hard, shifting tactics. Daniel, we build a life together. A home. We can work through this. I hold up a single finger, and she stops talking. You made your choices, I say. Now you get to live with them. She stares at me, chest rising and falling rapidly. You don't have to do this. I smirk. Oh, but I do. And here's the best part. I'm keeping the house. Her lips part. What? I nod, savoring the moment. The lease? In my name. The mortgage? In my name. You? A guest I no longer wish to accommodate. She blanches, realizing for the first time that she stands to lose everything. And only gets worse. The next morning, Madison texts me. You might want to check the news. I scroll through my phone, and there it is. Brent's company just put him under official review. Anonymous tips. Internal investigations. Corporate fraternization violations. Alyssa's harmless little fling just wrecked Brent's career. By noon, he's suspended indefinitely. By the end of the week, he'll be lucky to have a job at all. I walk into the kitchen, coffee in hand, and Alyssa is standing there, phone in a death grip. You set this up, she says, voice shaking. I sip my coffee, unbothered. So what up? She glares. Brent, his job. You ruined his career. I chuckle. I didn't ruin anything. He did that himself. Her breath comes out ragged. This is insane. You're destroying lives. I set my mug down, leaning in slightly. I'm just returning the favor. She opens her mouth, then closes it, because she knows I'm right. Her final attempt comes later that night. She stands in the doorway of her bedroom. No, my bedroom now, watching as I fold clothes into a suitcase. Where am I supposed to go? She whispers. I don't even glance at her. Not my problem. Her voice breaks. You don't love me anymore, do you? I pause, then look up. No, Alyssa, I say quietly. I don't. A single tear slips down her cheek. But I feel nothing, because the woman standing in front of me isn't the woman I married. She is just a stranger who thought she could lie forever. And tonight, she finally learned what it feels like to lose. Alyssa was always the type to look down on people who lost control of their lives. She prided herself on her image, the polished career woman, the effortlessly perfect wife, the woman who always came out on top. But now, she is the one watching everything slip through her fingers. The house was never hers. She thought she would fight me on the house. That was her first mistake. She sits across from me at the lawyer's office, hands clenched in her lap, as my attorney goes through the paperwork. Since the home was purchased solely in Daniel's name before the marriage, the attorney says, flipping a page, Alyssa has no legal claim to the property. Alyssa's spine stiffens. That can't be right. The attorney doesn't even blink. It's entirely right. The deed was never amended to include you, which means, legally speaking, you have no rights to it. Alyssa turns to me, eyes pleading now. Daniel, come on. I built a life in that house. I decorated it. I lean back in my chair. You used it, like you used me. She flinches. My attorney clears his throat, moving on. As for financial settlements, per the prenuptial agreement, Alyssa's lips press together. There it is. That moment when she realizes just how deep her mistakes go. Because I plan ahead. And now, she is walking away with nothing. Word spreads fast. Alyssa was always careful about curating her public image. In her world, perception was everything. So when people start talking, she feels it like a slow, creeping sickness. It starts in whispers. A few colleagues avoiding her eye at the office. An acquaintance at a networking event giving her a sympathetic but distant smile. Then come the phone calls from mutual friends, the ones she thought would always have her back. Look, Alyssa, one of them says over the phone. I don't think it's a good idea for you to come to the next mixer. Alyssa's grip tightens on the receiver. Excuse me? There's an awkward pause. It's just people are talking. About, what happened with Daniel. And Brent. It's a bad look. Alyssa's stomach twists. You're kidding me. Another silence. I just think you need to lay low for a while. Then the line clicks dead. Losing her career, too, by the end of the week, the final blow lands. Her boss calls her into the office, expression unreadable. Alyssa, he says, folding his hands. We need to discuss your contract. She knows what's coming before he even says it. You've been an asset to the company. He continues, carefully choosing his words. But in light of recent developments, we feel it's best to part ways quietly. Alyssa's breath catches. I wait. No evidence? The boss sighs. We can offer a letter of resignation for you to sign. In exchange, we won't disclose anything publicly. Alyssa's nails dig into her palms. And if I refuse? The boss meets her gaze evenly. Then we let the rumors play out. And we both know how that ends for you. Nowhere to go, she comes home. No, not home. Because it's not her home anymore. She steps into the apartment one last time, her suitcase by the door, the weight of it all finally crushing her. She looks at me, standing in the kitchen, watching her with nothing but indifference. Where am I supposed to go? She whispers. I sip my coffee, unbothered. Not my problem. Her breath shudders. Daniel, please, I exhale slowly. I don't care, Alyssa. Her lips part, but there's nothing left to say. Because for the first time in her life, she has no one left to manipulate. I walk to the door, open it wide, and gesture. Time to go. Alyssa is gone. Her closet, once filled with designer dresses and carefully curated outfits, is empty. The scent of her perfume, faint, artificial, has finally faded from the apartment. There is no more waiting for her to stumble in late, reeking of lies and bad decisions. No more pretending. No more games. And for the first time in 7 years, I feel something I never expected to feel in this house. Peace. Rebuilding, step by step. The weeks that follow are quieter, calmer. I spend my evenings in a way I haven't in years, actually enjoying them. I cook for myself, something Alyssa always called a waste of time when ordering takeout was easier. I go for runs without checking my phone, without wondering where she is, without trying to convince myself that her latest excuse isn't another lie. And then there's Madison. She comes by one evening, holding a bottle of bourbon and 2 glasses. For the divorcee, she says with a smirk, handing me the bottle. I chuckle, stepping aside to let her in. I prefer the term strategic escape artist. She laughs, a real one, and I realize it's been a while since I've heard laughter that isn't laced with deception. We sit on the back deck, drinks in hand, the sun setting low over the fence. For a long time, we don't talk about Alyssa. We just sit in silence, comfortable silence, the kind I never had in my marriage. Eventually, Madison leans back in her chair, swirling the bourbon in her glass. How does it feel? I raise an eyebrow. How does what feel? She gestures vaguely. Winning. Beating her at her own game. I exhale thinking about it. About all the planning, the precision, the patience it took to turn the tables on Alyssa and leave her with nothing. And then I shake my head. It doesn't feel like winning. Madison tilts her head. No. I sip my drink, letting the burn settle. It just feels like finally waking up. She watches me for a moment, then nods. That's a better answer than I expected. I smirk. You thought I'd gloat? She grins. A little. I chuckle. Tempting. But no, I don't need to, because Alyssa is already living in her own personal hell. The downfall of Alyssa Brooks, she moves into a tiny rental across town, far from the life she built in our old neighborhood. No more luxury. No more easy money. Just 4 walls and a reminder of the choices she made. She tries reaching out to old friends, to colleagues, but the damage is done. Brent? He disappeared the moment she became a liability. Her PR job? Gone. She wasn't officially fired, but she was encouraged to resign. Without glowing references, she's struggling to find another role at the level she was used to. And the worst part for her? People know. Whispers at networking events. Muted conversations at restaurants. Her name no longer carries weight. It carries shame. Something new with Madison keeps showing up. At first, it's just as a friend. A coffee here. A movie night there. Then, one evening, she lingers at the door as she's leaving. I watch her carefully. You okay? She exhales, shaking her head with a small smile. You ever have that moment when you realize something was always there, but you were just too close to see it? I raise an eyebrow. Is this about bourbon or something else? She laughs, then steps closer. Something else. I hold her gaze, reading the quiet certainty in it. Then slowly I nod. Yeah, I murmur. I know exactly what you mean. The barbecue that said everything. A few weeks later, we have a small backyard barbecue at my place. Just close friends. A few beers. A night without pretense. Someone, probably Dave, an old friend, raises an eyebrow at how comfortable Madison and I seem. "So what's this?" he asks, smirking. "You two a thing now?" Madison and I exchange a glance. Then she shrugs easily. "We're taking it slow." I sip my drink, smirking, but it feels right. And it does. For the first time in a long time, everything feels right. Final scene. A door closed for good. Alyssa texts me one last time. It's short, regretful, a final attempt at relevance. "I miss you." I stare at the screen for a long moment. Then, without a second thought, I delete the message. I close the door on her, our past, and everything I used to believe about love. Because love isn't manipulation. It isn't control. It isn't something that needs to be proven over and over again to someone who never deserved it. It's what I have now. It's freedom. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.